NPAs have always maintained. NPA is part of a lending business. We all catch the wrong end of the stick.
You remember Rajneesh Kumar pointing out to Aditya Puri at one of the press conferences, जिसका video काफी viral हुआ था. He said that this guy doesn't know what an NPA is.
Yeah, I agree. But Rajneesh Kumar forgets one thing. The finance minister will call him, not Aditya Puri, to do a lending in some constituency or Garibi Bachao, Garibi Hatao scheme.
Welcome to the Plan B show, second episode with Srinath Sridharan on the banking sector. Srini, coming straight to the point, how do we ensure a robust recapitalization of banks in this budget?
Very simple. The owner of those banks have to bring in capital. It's as simple as that. And I think this time, with the fiscal space being limited and with the regulator not liking various creative ways of financing to bring those money in, it has to be actual cash coming in, tier one capital coming into those banks. Two, this has become a sore question every single year. I mean, because banks not making money, banks losing money on NPAs, every year the banks are needing further capital, further recap. Whether it is the concept of PCA that some of the banks were and they come out of it, the reality is we need capital. And it is high time that owner of these banks, which is in this case the Government of India for the public sector banks, puts together next 2 to 3 year roadmap to figure out what banks will they merge as part of M&A, what banks will they consolidate to make it larger entities, and what banks are they ready to sell to private players. And if we can do that well and good and with adequate capital, I think we will see a robust banking system. Otherwise, we are going to have this conversation every year till cows come home.
Well, I plan to have this conversation with you next year as well. But for now, as far as divestment is concerned, divestment of stake of the government in the public sector banks, do you think that will also be on the cards, especially starting with IDBI?
I don't know about IDBI because that's a question where the Government of India is not to be answering this. It will be the LIC of India which will answer this. But if you look at the other public sector banks, the Government of India has had an intent and it has showcased that intent the previous year. I mean, the current fiscal. It has shown that it has merged certain entities and the merger has gone well as well. I hope they continue with the same momentum, if not probably with far greater acceleration. And I think the point is this, if you can do it during COVID lockdown, I think you can do it better otherwise as well. And we've also proven in the previous merger M&As this fiscal that you're not necessarily worried about the non-financial investor stakeholder, which means the unions and others involved. You can deal with it humanely and adequately. And sooner we do it, the better.
Srini, there was a meeting with all the leading economists, some of the Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Nirmala Sitharaman this Friday, the Friday which has gone by. And most of the economists have agreed that the government should keep fiscal worries aside for this year and be generous with expenditure on sectors which are requiring a lot of focus. So banking and financial services, a lot will be expected this year as far as giving out loans is concerned. As far as simultaneously there's a vicious cycle of recapitalization of the same banks. So we are in a very catch-22 situation. What would be your advice to the government this year apart from the points which you have just mentioned?
So I have a slight difference of opinion. It's not catch-22, it is cash-22. It's cash-22. I mean, there has been sufficient liquidity that the banks are sitting with and they've not been lending. And it is RBI and indirectly the Government of India is benefiting because it is the reverse repo rate which is applying to those excess liquidity. I think the sooner or later that we come back and say there is an adequate space for lending and the bankers have to feel comfortable in lending to those segments. So it is not catch-22 at all. The banks are flush with liquidity. And if you ask the banks, some of them will say that they do not have adequate demand from consumer segments. And also some of them are probably even right because COVID is, let's face it, is still not over. You have a moratorium ruling which is still pending. You have the IBC which has been paused. You have a huge one which is the KV Kamath framework which had just opened and not many applied. So some of these are still work in progress. And the biggest, the debt, let's say the person who owns the debt or buys the debt in the market is the Government of India in the debt market. So the point coming back to it to you is this. If you're talking about recap and if you're talking about banks are flush with liquidity. And they will have to lend. They will have to figure out the consumer sentiment to lend. If you're talking about disinvestment, that's a separate story altogether.
Now, since you did not agree with my number 22, I'll throw at you the number 0. Okay. What about the zero coupon bond for PSU Bank recapitalization, which has been the talk of the debate and especially the financial community over the last few months? RBI doesn't agree with zero coupon bond. But how do you think this framework is likely to work in the future or in the coming months, especially the focus of the finance minister in the budget?
Sure. I think the fundamental principle is this. If you want something specifically for a certain set of banks, let's say it's private sector or public sector or cooperative or whatever, then it should have a same yardstick for others. So if you're allowing one stakeholder, which is the government of India, to bring certain financial instrument for capitalizing its banks, you'll not allow the same thing to private sector. And I'm speculating here, I'm not privy to any of these discussions. I'm speculating that RBI could have had this as a common yardstick to say that what applies for one owner should apply for all. So what will happen if every owner of banks in the country, including private sector, brings in an instrument which is not necessarily bringing in cash, but bringing in any kind of recapitalization bond, which is financially creative, but not necessarily allowing the cash to lie in the bank? We have had a public sector bank which just did that, and a lot of questions have been around that as well.
Now, since you mentioned, and this would be my last question in our small snippets, one rule should be applicable to another, but this doesn't work with NPAs. The number of NPAs have been growing over the last few years. Right now, the number stands at a whopping 7 lakh crores. Where do you think the NPAs are likely to go? Because in the COVID times, a lot of bad loans will be turning up. The books haven't opened yet, but I'm sure as the more and more numbers we'll be getting to know, there'll be more and more bad loans coming up. So the number of NPAs, especially after COVID, is set to rise. Where do you think, wouldn't this be a tricky situation for the government as well?
It's a tricky situation for any bank owner. Why only government? In this case, we'll have to look at government as a bank owner of few banks. So if you talk to a private bank owner, he also has the same situation. So the point is NPA is part of a normal lending business, and COVID has been unusual circumstance globally, not just for India, not just for Indian government to own its bank. So any bank which is prudentially, provisioned for it over the last 3 quarters will find itself in favor when COVID is over. Let's say come this April, when the new financial year comes in, they'll be in a better place. If they have not provided adequately enough and suddenly they have to take a haircut and provide for it, some of them are going to need capital which could probably put them in greater risk.
Do you think this year there will be more regulation on the NBFCs?
I don't know. I think there has been a conversation about regulations on NBFCs for quite some time, and it is but natural to bring them on par. And I've always propagated that if NBFC has been at a certain size, forcefully or even look at them for a path to make them into a bank. Because the sooner you can regulate them tightly, supervise them tightly, and to give them access to debt markets with adequate care will actually benefit the consumer. Today, we are not doing consumer any justice if we call them an NBFC, leave them to the mercies, yet have regulation which there's a gap between a bank and a non-bank.
And I remember you mentioning that the same rules should be extended to microfinancial institutions as well.
So I've been saying any lending institution beyond a certain size must be assessed to say that should they be coming under a banking purview at all completely. And the last time we spoke as well, I have mentioned saying that the sooner we look at simplifying banking license, saying one a universal bank and other a focus bank or a specialized bank, it will simplify a lot of headaches.
Okay, Srini, if I put you in a hypothetical situation, you being the personal advisor to the finance minister, what would be your plan B for this year? Top 2 focuses for the plan B this year.
So one,
as far as recapitalization is concerned.
Recapitalization, I think a regulator cannot force a owner to do any recapitalization, but for saying that bring me cash in. I mean, that's the only way recapitalization can be agreed, not any creative accounting or creative financial instrument. 2, very, very simple. Go out proactively, keep giving confidence to the consumer segment that we are safe, we are comfortable, borrow, economy is fine. One of the reasons the way credit offtake can happen is when consumers actually go out and borrow. Whether it is you and me as retail borrowers or it is institutions or it is borrowers, they have to go out and borrow. That confidence is what I would advise that the regulator give to the public.
But Srini, don't you think that's easier said than done? Because the main focus of the government this year is to boost demand. And for boosting demand, there has to be money available in the hands of the public. Do you think this recapitalization will translate into the hands of public? That's one. Second, the government has, it's an easier said than government should not be in the business of running a business. and that has happened for too long as far as the government, public sector banks are concerned. How do you balance both?
So I'll take the second one first. I've said this in the past as well. I mean, but for the public sector banks, a lot of segments of our Indian consumers would not have got credit access at all. The private sector banks left to themselves would not even look at them or pick their call or even make a call to them. And that's a reality, including NBFCs. So there are times like these where the public sector units have proven their merit. And I'm not here judging them for the return on investment on their equity base and all that. I'm saying that they're doing a public service. So any government has to balance finance as well as social inclusion. And to your first question, the point is, if you have to stimulate demand, and that's why I'm saying you have to give confidence, the regulator or the government has to give confidence to the public that there is money available for you, whether you are a farmer or a trader or an industrialist or an individual or an entrepreneur, there is money available for you, and to ensure that money is actually available.
Do you think so far Nirmala Sitharaman has done a fair job in giving confidence to the consumers and the industrialists?
So I think if you look at the last 8 months of all the announcements and including, let's say, the amendments to IBC and others, there has been a lot of work that has happened. As it translated down the system, it is like saying, would the chairman of a board be actually going down to the customer in a small rural market where it is a job of the branch manager, whose boss is the zonal manager, whose super boss probably is the regional manager, and whose super boss is the CEO? There is actually a hierarchy there. So if your first point, yes, there has been a lot of things being done. It is very, very easy to sit in judgment in times like this saying they could have done this better, they didn't do it. Yes, we can always pass judgments there. Have they done enough? They have done adequately enough. Could they have done more? Answer is yes. And I'm also speculating here that this budget could be a path breaking. I'm actually putting my money on saying that after 1992, the liberalization budget, can this be mother of all budgets? But again, it puts a lot of pressure on the finance minister to say, can it really be the mother of all budget? And I just want to close with one caveat. This government, unlike all the previous governments, has not used the budget as the only policy announcement event. The budget is nothing but the balance sheet, the proposed balance sheet of the government of India. Thanks to the media hype over the last few years, the budget day has become more a celebrated day in the financial markets rather than anything else.
No, we remember last year, the budget was proposed and within 2 months, all the measures announced in the budget, we were back to square one. So you're absolutely right. Budget is more of a media event than the government or the BFSI event. But Srini, I would, I'm again and again saying that this would be my last question, but your answer somehow triggers another intrigueness in me. So I remember talking to a senior economist. He's also a member of the Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council. He said that this year could be a year of subsidies for a lot of sectors. And to roll out subsidies, you need your banks. Does the government have the support of its banks, according to you? Or rather than support, I should say, do the banks have the resources and wherewithal to support the government this year?
So one, I think if you look at the public sector banks, they've rolled out, or public sector banks, public sector insurance companies, they've rolled out adequately enough government schemes. And here's a catch. Are those schemes actually impacting positively for the consumer? I think nobody has actually measured it and actually announcing they're measuring or not. Distribution system, can they reach it to them? Yes, they can. And here is what an analogy of a WhatsApp joke that's been circulating in the last few days about, let's say, the COVID vaccination, right? Saying that why wait for 6 months for COVID vaccination? Can't government of India actually outsource it to Amazon? In 1 week, each person will get it. And if you're Amazon Prime member, you'll get it in 2 days. That speaks about efficiency of a system. I'm not here supporting Amazon or Amazon Prime. I'm talking about efficiency of a system. And I think the sooner we build credibility for our public distribution system, be it a bank or an insurance company or the standalone PDS. But to your point, I think, yes, we have the robustness in the public sector units to go down all the way. Would I say the same thing for private sector banks? Not really. Not yet.
Great. So from public distribution system, we'll keep discussing Srini's proposed methods. In the next episode, we talk about specialized banks for specialized sectors and making bank licenses easy, as Srinath had recommended. Srini, thank you so much for your time. We sign off from Plan B. See you soon. Bye-bye.